Welcome to the Trust and Believe NOMADCAST, a podcast that covers a wide range of topics. So come chill with us on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Here's your host, Mr. Anderson.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 88 of the Trust and Believe NOMADCAST. I'm your host, Mr. Anderson. Thank you for tuning in today on the 17th of March, 2022. Today is the first official day of March Madness. So trust and believe when this show is over and I am done with all the post-work, the post-production, and everything that's involved once this episode is uploaded, this guy you see, this guy you hear will be watching college basketball. Trust and believe. All right, so today's episode, we're going to talk about two pair of shoes, one iconic brand. Well, actually, two iconic brands. One is still at the higher echelon of sneaker culture currently, and probably will be for the foreseeable future. And one used to be, in the past, was iconic. I don't know the current state right now. I know Adidas recently sold them after purchasing them in 2005. I think Shaquille O'Neal owns them, but nonetheless, we're going to talk about Nike and Reebok, a pair of Nike Air Raids and Reebok Omni Zone, which, as you can see here in the thumbnail, which one would you prefer, the Nike Air Raid or the Reebok Pump Omni Zone? Again, like we always do, that's consistent with our gym shoe stories. I talk about the history. I dive into the history of the Nike Air Raid and the history of the Reebok Pump Omni Zone, and then we'll talk about specifications, we'll talk about comfort, and then we'll go ahead and close it out. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start. Which one would you prefer, the Nike Air Raid or the Reebok Pump Omni Zone? Let's go ahead and get started with the Nike Air Raid. The Nike Air Raid. I have to say this, and I always say this, and everyone probably says, you always says this. Phenomenal shoe, ladies and gentlemen. Phenomenal shoe. The Nike Air Raid. So let's go talk about some history. The Nike Air Raid was designed by Tinker Hatfield and debuted in 1992. The shoe was originally designed as an outdoor basketball shoe only. And when they dive into the specs portion of this segment, I'll show you where it's actually inscripted in the back heel for outdoor use only. Tim Hardaway and Spike Lee were the first notable people to wear the Nike Air Raid. Tinker Hatfield designed the shoe after receiving a sticky note at his desk from the suits at Nike, instructing him to design and develop a outdoor-only basketball shoe. The X was about strapping up the shoe going to battle. You may ask what the X was, and I explain that when we get to the specs portion. This is the X that Tinker talked about, and the reason he designed that, because it was you playing outdoor basketball. Any of us that played outdoor basketball, especially back in the day, it was a freaking battle, a mental battle and a physical battle. And sometimes some unfortunate incidents. A lot of us that played in those urban courts, we witnessed. But the X, and I dive into it, the X was supposed to simulate strapping up going into battle because it was a concrete jungle playing outdoor basketball back in those days. I don't know if it's like that now. A little different. All right, let's go ahead and dive into the Reebok Pump. Again, another phenomenal shoe, like you always say. Phenomenal shoe. Let's go ahead and dive into the history of the Reebok Pump. The Reebok Pump debuted on November 24th, 1989 at $170. Now, current dollars, I think that adds up to maybe $330. I may be off by a couple of dollars or so. But $170 in 1989 is equivalent to almost $300 currently. The shoe was originally equipped with the ERS, the Energy Return System. The Energy Return System was almost as a counteract to Nike's Air campaign, the Air Max bubbles, the Air bubbles. Reebok needed something to counter that because the Nike Air, the Air bubbles was all the rage. People wanted shoes with cushion. People wanted shoes with flexibility, functionality. I always talk about that. So Reebok couldn't say, hey, let's have an Air Reebok. Let's go ahead and design something, the ERS. And if you look at this picture here, the original pump had the ERS designed into it. This one does, and I'll show you, it just doesn't, it's not inscripted at the bottom. And the shoe was designed by Paul Litchfield. Another historical fact, Reebok had a running campaign against Nike titled Pump Up and Air Out, as you can see here, Dominique and Dennis Rodman. Another historical note, D. Brown wore a pair of the Nike Omni Pump Zones at the 1991 Slam Dunk Contest. Again, so let's go ahead. Got some historical notes out the way. Let's go ahead and dive into some specs here. Now, with the Nike Air Raid, as I talked about earlier, this X was simulating strapping up going into battle. Anybody that played basketball back in those 80s, 90s, even 70s, it was hardcore. You go to the rim, you go to the hole, try to score. Dudes were elbowing you in your neck, in your back, in your ribs. They didn't care. They was just doing anything. I mean, you talk about getting bloody lips, teeth knocked out, all the et ceteras. And sometimes there was some other unfortunate incidents that was going on. But Tinker Hatfield knew when he was instructed by Nike, as I read in the historical notes, Nike wanted him to design an outdoor shoe, an outdoor basketball shoe that was tough. So the first thing he did, if you look at the sketches here, he designed this X, again, strapping up to battle. Now, I talked about in the back here, if you can see, it says for outdoor use only. Again, these shoes were originally designed for only outdoor use. But again, sneaker culture, I always say this, always, and I'm very consistent with it. We wear shoes, particularly Nikes, we wear shoes not for their intended use, not for their intended purpose. By law, by Nike regulation, you should only wear this shoe playing basketball outside. Ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you, as a person that bought a pair of these in 1992, I did not wear these playing basketball. I wore these to go to the mall, to go shopping, to go to the movies, hanging with my friends, right? I was not wearing this shoe just like a lot of other people. We were not wearing this shoe for the intended use. So we violated all Nike laws and procedures, right? But I tell you, again, phenomenal shoe. If you look at this, consistent with the Nike hook in the back. Now, you may say, well, those don't look like Nikes. Right there. You see it, Nike Air on the tongue. Phenomenal shoe. Look at that. One of the first Nikes to not have a Nike sign embedded on the shoe on the outside and on the inside. But here you see Nike right there. Now look at this. This side straps was the parts that's holding these straps. If you look at this, it looks like steel. The little X's that you see inside of steel plates and steel floors. Look on that as well. Very strong. Again, this was meant for outdoors. If you look at this, the bottom of this toe box, very rubbery, a very sturdy rubber feeling. Very sturdy. So you playing ball, hitting that concrete. Even if you look on the heel here, very sturdy. And the heel is very, very sturdy. It's very hard, but it's a little softness to it, right? But it has that basketball outdoor functionality. And that's the bottom of it there. This is a phenomenal shoe. I always love, this is the original color set. I always love the way this silhouette looked. Black is almost like the Oakland Raiders or the Las Vegas Raiders. Well, it was the LA Raiders back then. But that black and gray, wonderful color tone. Wonderful color tone. As you can see here, Air Raid right on the side. Phenomenal shoe. And they had other colors. They had like this Fruity Pebble looking color. And they had the African color, the African American colors that we rocked back in the day. But this was the shoe that I bought, and I talked about it in the episode, and I'll reference the episode in a minute. But the Nike Air Raid, 1992. Phenomenal shoe, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and talk about the Reebok Pump. Now, the Reebok Pump has a lot of history in it. Like I talked about, D. Brown actually wore these shoes at the Slam Dunk Contest back in 1991. When the Slam Dunk Contest was a Slam Dunk Contest. And all the basketball folks, you know what I'm talking about. Remember when he actually played, before he dunked the ball at the Slam Dunk Contest, he pumped, right? And this is what Reebok was talking about. Pump up and air out. Again, that was a challenge to Nike. Nike had the Air Max this, Air Max bubbles, air bubbles. Reebok said, you know what? We're going to develop the Hexalite. We're going to develop the ERS system embedded in our shoes, right? For more comfort, functionality, flexibility, and we're going to pump it. And this is what they talked about. As you can see that here, right here, the Hexalite and the Hexalite diamond is down at the bottom. Back in the day, the original shoe had ERS on it, energy return system. Again, this is a remake. This is a ode to the retro, so they don't have the ERS on here. Reebok right here, and it's called the Pump, the Reebok Pump. Now, Reebok actually started making pumps in 1989, and this one came out, and I'm telling you, this shoe was phenomenal. Love this shoe. And when D Brown wore this shoe at the dunking contest, I mean, it just took Reebok to a whole nother stratosphere. But they weren't able to sustain their success after that. It could have been marketing, could have been, a lack of A-list players. They had Shaquille O'Neal at the time. Dominique Wilkins was wearing Reebok. Daggone D Brown was wearing Reebok. But in the competitive light, they couldn't challenge Nike because Nike had everything. And Reebok, I think they started a little late in the basketball arena because Nike wasn't gaining any traction in the aerobic world. Reebok was killing the aerobic world. If you guys remember back in the day, Reebok, I mean, you didn't talk aerobics unless you talked Reebok. But then Reebok decided, hey, let's get into this basketball market. Now, they probably came in a little bit too late, but nonetheless, those Reeboks of the 80s, late 80s, early 90s, phenomenal shoe. This is all about originality. No one was wearing shoes that had pumps in it. And then Nike came out a few years later. Mark Jackson was wearing a pair of Nike with a so-called pump in it, if you will. But again, the Reebok Pump, I'm telling you, this was definitely a challenge to Nike. They had the slogan, they had the tagline, they had the commercials, pump up, air out. I always loved this little thing right here. I never knew what this meant, but it's just this little zag here. The toe box is very simplistic toe box. This shoe definitely has a little hardness, a little sturdiness to it around the edges of your foot. You can feel the softness right up in here, right? That Hexalite down at the bottom. And you see Hexalite on the back here. This part right here where the ankle support, it's almost like a netting, a closed netting. It kind of reminds you of it kind of reminds you like mesh material, if you will, but you can feel it right here on top of the ankle. Definitely got some ankle support. This is a very big shoe. It's a sturdy shoe. Last week I talked about the Charles Barkleys, and they were designed to look like a tank. This shoe actually looks like a tank. And when you put it on, if you try to tie it up in a stylistic way, it looks very big on your foot. But nonetheless, phenomenal shoe. As you can see here on the tongue, it says Reebok. I don't know if you can see that real good. Basketball. The Reebok Pump, the Omni Zone. Came out originally in 1989, but I tell you, when D Brown wore these shoes in 1991 at the slam dunk contest, I mean, it just took freaking off. It took off. So we talked about the specs of the Nike Air Raid 1992 and the specs of the Reebok Omni Zone, originally debuted 1989. Getting my words mixed up. All right, so let's talk about some nostalgic memories. I will tell you the Nike Air Raid, episode 32, 11 November 2021. Episode 32, 11 November 2021. I talked about purchasing this shoe in 1992. And what did I do? I was skipping school, catching all these buses in Detroit, going from my house to Eastland Foot Locker to have them. I went to Northland Foot Locker to have them. And they had to go to daggone Fairlane, which is in Dearborn, and they had them. Skipping school, ladies and gentlemen, to buy shoes back in the 90s was the thing to do. I don't recommend doing that now. Stay in school, kids. Again, episode 32 was the date here. 11 November 2021. You can listen to that sneaker story here. The Reebok Omni Zone. Love this shoe as well. You can reference this episode 21 October 2021. I talked about walking in the rain, walking the miles, going to Sibley's in Detroit on Livernois Avenue to buy a pair of Reebok Omni Zones. Did a lot of things in Detroit back in the day, chasing gym shoes, chasing sneakers, and doing all that. Some of it wasn't, very popular at the time. A lot of negative actions. Should have had my butt in school instead of, trying to walk in the rain or catching buses, buying shoes. But hey, those are the life lessons. Those are the testaments. Being able to provide a testimony and trying to do the right thing. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, we all got a story. But I tell you, these shoes, nostalgic, man. Skipping school and walking in the rain to buy freaking shoes. Freaking gym shoe addict. I am a gym shoe addict. And I probably will always be a gym shoe addict. So let's talk about comfort. Let's transition into comfort. Now, wearing both of these shoes, again, not for the intended purpose. The intended purpose of this shoe was for outdoor use only. Did not do it, ladies and gentlemen. The purpose of this shoe was to play basketball in. Did not do it, ladies and gentlemen. Comfort-wise, I will tell you, the Nike Air Raid has the comfort level. If comfort level is a 10, I would say the Nike Air Raid is probably a 9. Very comfortable. You got to make sure when you crossing these straps over your instep of your foot, over the top of your foot, you don't, strap them up too tight, right? And if you got a nice size foot like I do, like I wear a size 10, so all the shoes look pretty good on my foot. I don't have these big aircraft carriers. If you got aircraft carriers, size 11 and up, God bless you, right? But the instep, when you strap these up, the instep doesn't hurt. Now, the Reeboks are comfortable. My only issue is, from now and even back then, they look bigger than what they are. Even if you tie these shoes up, right? If you tie the Reeboks up, they still have a big look to it. It's like tank-like. Again, I talked about it with the Charles Barkley Nikes from back in the day last week. They feel big, they fit big, they look big. But it's a very comfortable shoe. So if I had to rate, I rated this, a 9.5 for comfort out of 10. I would rate this I would give it a solid 9. Maybe an 8.7. It's a comfortable shoe. It's not a difficult shoe to wear, but it's a very heavy shoe. The shoe is heavy, and again, it's very big. As you can see, it's a very wide shoe, especially like right up in here, right to the top of the ankle, almost like where the shins are. It's a very high shoe, but it's a good shoe. It's a functional shoe. But if I had to rate comfort, I will always rank the Nike Air Raid comfort level higher than the Reebok Omni Zone, the Reebok Pump Omni Zone. Again, you can reference episode 32 and reference episode 20 as well. All right, just to close it out, thank you guys for tuning in today here on the Gym Shoe Story on a Thursday. Kind of went back into the archives and kind of broke up some things, because I think for the last month or so, maybe couple months, I was going brand against brand and different silhouettes, different models within that brand going against the brand. So I decided, you know what, let's have a competition between Reebok and daggone Nike Air Raid. Again, these shoes came out, debuted around the same time. Again, I have nostalgic memories of these shoes, actually wearing these shoes back in the day. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, these are remakes. These are not the originals from back in the day. I don't even know where my pair's at, the ones that I had. I threw them away years ago. But again, this episode has been about the Nike Air Raid and the Reebok Pump Omni Zone. Two phenomenal shoes back in the late 80s, early 90s. Phenomenal. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Appreciate everything you guys are doing in your personal lives and your respective lives. Thank you for continuing to support the Trust and Believe NOMADCAST. Thank you. Tomorrow's episode, just to kind of set the conditions for tomorrow's episode, we're going to talk about a movie. One of my favorite movies of all time, Let's Do It Again, by Bill Cosby, Sidney Poitier, J.J. Walker played in it, and also another person that played in that movie that you probably didn't even realize played in the movie. But stay tuned, stay locked. We'll have an episode tomorrow. We'll talk about Let's Do It Again. Again, I'm not familiar with the whole YouTube copyright, so I won't play any excerpts from the movie. Again, I provide associated pictures, historical facts, so on and so forth. So that'll be the episode tomorrow for Finally It's Friday. We talk about the movie Let's Do It Again. But again, today's episode has been about the Nike Air Raid and the Reebok Pump Omni Zone. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Have a blessed day. Continue to be safe. Take care of yourself. Take care of your others. Do the right thing. All praises due. All the best. God bless you. Have a great day. See y'all tomorrow. Let's say it all together. Trust and believe. See y'all later, y'all.